Reading with your kids.
Hola, niho, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni moni wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful and historic neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so honored and so wicked happy that you are joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show, and please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, wherever you find your podcasts. This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by A is for Always, an adoption alphabet, written by Linda Cutting. Linda tells us that this book is inspired by her daughter, a Chinese-American girl adopted into an all-white family when she was only 6. She stomped down the hall carrying 2 books, demanding to know why her adoption book was different from her white brother's. Linda says her daughter asked her to write a book for adoptees from everywhere so no one would feel left out. A book that addressed the challenges as well as the joys of adoption. You and your kids are going to love this beautiful book. It's a beautiful message, and the illustrations are absolutely beautiful. Every page shows a different adopted family of cuddly animals welcoming and cherishing a new child. A is for Always. It hit number 1 on Amazon for new releases. It should be in your family library. Get your copy today. A is for Always, an adoption alphabet by Linda Cutting. This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by The Moon from Dehradun, a story of partition written by Shireen Shamsi. This is a really, really powerful book inspired by the author's family story. This lyrical, moving picture book is a testament to the strength, courage, and perseverance of the over 15 million refugees displaced by the largest forced migration in recorded history. And it shares a young girl's journey from her old home to her new one. This is a really, really powerful story that will inspire lots of fantastic conversations in your home. It belongs in your family library. It belongs in every classroom library. Get your copy today. The Moon from Dehradun, a story of partition by Shireen Shamsi. Joining us right now from the beautiful Garden State of New Jersey, our guest is here today to celebrate her beautiful picture book. It's called I Am Musical, Adventures with Waffles. Please welcome to the show, Barbara Brown. Hey, Barbara, how are you?
Doing well. Thanks so much for having me.
Delighted to have you on. I love the title of this book, I Am Musical. The colors, I'm looking at the website, the colors are great. I love music. I love reading. I think that this is a perfect book.
Yeah, it's been a really exciting project to work on. And, based on my real dog, Waffles, which has been really fun too. So there's a lot of really exciting pieces to the book, and I think that children have really been enjoying it.
So tell us a little bit about the story we're going to be reading with our kids when we sit down with I Am Musical.
Yeah, so as a elementary music teacher, I realized that by the time they get to about grade 5, they're not really as engaged with music as they are when they're super little. As a mom, you put your kids in these mommy and me music classes, and they just go crazy, right? The maracas, the singing, the dancing, and it's such a beautiful time. And then, as they get older, I think they get, a little bit embarrassed, their self-esteem starts to go down a little bit, and they start to think that unless they play an instrument or they're super involved in a specific music community, that, they're not really musical and their opinion is really not that valid. So I Am Musical is the story of a dog named Waffles and her best friend, Corgi, whose name is Crouton. And her best friend, Crouton, is asking her, are you musical? And she's like, absolutely. I am like so musical. It's ridiculous. But she can't sing. She can't dance. She can't compose anything. And Crouton the whole time is like, how are you musical at all? And she just describes to him how, she loves to share her music. She loves to learn about it. She enjoys it. And it's more about how music makes her feel. And so Crouton realizes that he's musical at the end of the story too. So it's really aimed to help children really regain their confidence in their musical opinion, and to just remind them that being musical is a part of just being human instead of something that they might think is something they're not a part of.
I love that. As you were speaking, I had a little flashback to when I was in elementary school, and my instrument was the drums, and I had an amazing orchestra teacher who was actually a member of the Boston Symphony Orchestra, and she was a percussionist. And our little school, there wasn't a lot of appreciation for the arts in our little elementary school. So at one point, the school band was drums, trumpet, and clarinet.
Wow.
It was very so the teacher our teacher, Mrs. Fleck, she made an all-town band, and she brought together, and I have trouble following rules, and so I wasn't really big on reading music. I love to improvise, and so when we got in this all-town band, people kind of looked at me like, you're not any good, you're not following the music. And, but there's this one song we played, a rock song, back in the 60s. And, I remember, in this all-time band, everybody's kind of pushing me to the back. Like, no, you can't do this. And then Mrs. Fleck came up and she said, I want you there. And you just hold the cymbal. Jed, go crazy. And I was rocking out, just improvising, and she really helped me appreciate that the music is just something to be loved and felt.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like that story is true of so many small schools and education institutions, around our country. And, it's a shame sometimes the arts aren't really as well supported financially in our schools. And so that's also a reason why I created the book. It serves really well as like a classroom resource for teachers. The website that it's associated with, adventuresofwaffles.com, has, lesson plans for teachers. It has coloring pages for little kids. And so there's really an opportunity for teachers to reignite their students' excitement while also giving parents the opportunity to really support that at home too.
Yeah. I think that's really genius, because when you think about it, I think I think music can really enhance learning, not just learning how to play an instrument, but music in the classroom. When you think about, I still remember jingles from commercials that I heard almost 100 years ago on TV for different products that I never used, but I just heard there was this a rug cleaning company, and their telephone number was Andrew 8000, and it was like, how many cookies did Andrew ate? Andrew ate 8000, and yeah. I mean, that is literally 60 years ago. Right. And I remember it. And so I'm thinking that, wow, if you incorporate music into the classroom, maybe some of that mundane kind of memorizing stuff that kids hate doing might become a little bit easier.
Right. It's definitely an asset. And I think that people also forget in that same way that music is everywhere. And sometimes kids just think that music only exists in their music classroom or with their ensembles, but it's the music playing in the doctor's office to help you relax. It's the song that your star pitcher comes out to the field in because it pumps them up. It's all of these things, and there are so many ways to help your children really encourage their musicality. It's your 7th grade daughter who is maybe going through something, and feeling a little alone or whatever it is. And it's asking her, mom's going to the gym. Can you make me a playlist of your favorite songs? I need something new to listen to. And maybe that is the one thing that could really help translate how she's feeling or give you a little bit of insight of what she finds exciting. And it's really interesting because with social media and, cancel culture and everything, these youth have so much power in what music becomes famous, what music becomes popular with the TikToks and all of that stuff. And so they have a lot of responsibility as well in terms of what should we be listening to, what's important, what is the message you want to get across. And so I'm hoping that this book will really help students from an early age feel as though their responsibility in our culture to fortify a music that makes best sense to them translates over time and really helps them over time to feel confident.
One of the things that was important to me, not only reading with my kids, but it was important for me as my kids got older and got into middle school and high school to listen to music with my kids and to talk about it. And I learned very early on from a very wise teacher not to try to ban anything. There's certainly lots of music I didn't want my kids listening to, but I realized that if I tried to ban it outright, they were going to listen to it anyways. And so there was a way to say, I don't want this song in my house. I think it's disrespectful, whatever. But at least have the conversation with the kids about why you feel that way. And can you talk a little bit more about that and just the value of, we celebrate the value of reading with our kids. Talk a little bit about the value of listening to music with your kids and talking about it.
Absolutely. Music is one of our senses, right? It's one of our senses that jumpstarts memories and how we feel about things. And so just for your example, for all of that music that's so inappropriate, I'm sure we can even remember being 10 years old and singing along with something that's completely inappropriate. But sometimes, there's a lot to be spoken for passive listening and listening to something for the rhythm and the beat, and maybe sitting down with your kids and being like, okay, well, why does this speak to you? And then they might realize, well, it pumps me up for soccer, or, it's what everyone is listening to. And I like being able to sing along to something with my best friends on our way to Dunkin' Donuts. Mm-hmm. So, having those conversations as well. But, just personally, my mom passed away when I was in high school, and I kind of had to re-meet my father as just being a person rather than being like a couple of my parents. And in doing so, one night, it was really late and we were watching the Eagles documentary on Netflix. And it was one of the bands that him and my mom really enjoyed together, and watching it and just learning their story really got me really interested in their music. And, I was like, wow, these old guys are like really cool. And, so we watched it together and it was super late, and it was just, it was one of those times where we were like, okay, this is something we have in common. And then later on, years later, we went to an Eagles concert together, and it wasn't until I was getting married that I asked my dad, I said, hey, would you want to dance to Hotel California at the wedding? And he was like, absolutely. And I think that music for us, my dad is completely tone deaf, cannot sing anything, horribly untalented singer. But really being able to do that together and, have a piece where we were able to remember my mom, but all of a sudden it became ours as well. I think that those moments are really, really special, and to do what you can with your kids to create those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My daughter went through, when she was in middle and high school, she wanted very much to get into the music business, and she did. But one of the ways she was doing it was by working with bands when they came up. These particular bands would be playing stadiums down south, and they'd come up north, and they'd have to play in little tiny churches and depend on volunteer help. And so we would help out, and it was such a fantastic way for her and I to bond and to come together and to share super moments that I wouldn't have in spend time with her that most dads don't get to spend that much time with their teenage daughters. So it was really, really special.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I studied ethnomusicology in undergrad at Columbia, and when you learn about, it's basically the study of music in terms of anthropology, right? So the way in which music functions as a system of culture. And in that same way that you experience those things with your daughter and kind of learned a whole new part of a business or a discipline that she had never learned before, cultures all over the world have been making music a part of their ceremonies, a part of their grieving, a part of their celebration, their communication. And so sometimes it feels like we're a little overstimulated with what we think our parenthood should look like, that we kind of forget that there are these things that we genuinely just enjoy with our kids, just like you said, seeing music, or it doesn't even have to be going to a concert, but it's, going to a museum and seeing your favorite piece and being like, what is this? What song does this make you think of? Or, you choose what you want to listen to on the radio on our long drive to your volleyball tournament. And what conversations does that bring up?
Mm-hmm. I don't think enough people think about music in conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I know kids are having conversations about music all the time.
Right.
And I think it's really valuable for us to have conversations. And I would encourage parents not to be judgmental. But just to have open conversations. And like you said earlier, what is it about this song? Is it the lyrics? Is it the beat? Is it the rhythm? What's speaking to you through this song?
Right. And it also helps with, communication skills, right? Being able to say, what does this make me feel? So that way later on when they're going through something and they don't know how they feel, it might help them identify that. Yeah. And, celebrating the little progress, right? So it's not just celebrating your child who was the best violinist in North Jersey, right? It's celebrating your child who was able to finally sing along to a song that has a lot of words, or, the small things, and really encouraging their musicality that way, but really reminding them that everyone is musical and that your opinion is absolutely valid. Even if, Taylor Swift is huge right now, probably one of the biggest people in the world. And there are a lot of people who kind of like to be like, oh, well, her music is just, kids pop and stuff like that. And, that's also not cool, right? Mm-hmm. So whatever you value also means that whatever other people value is important too. So in doing so, I think it teaches a lot of empathy.
Yeah. What's the expression? Don't yuck someone's yum.
Right. Exactly.
Hey, you were talking about ethnomusicology, and that was one of the things I wanted to ask you about in my notes. I'm like, what in the world is that? Yeah. But you're talking a little bit about music and culture, and I know I haven't done a lot of travel. I've done some travel through Latin America, and have some knowledge of cultures from the past, and we talk about this culture. Oh, this is the music from this part of the world. That's the music from that part of the world. Do we have that here in the United States? Because we have all these kind of genres blowing up, and everything seems people just listen to this music over here or that music. And, and if you're listening to something on Spotify, then Spotify sends you down a certain rabbit hole as opposed to, I was lucky. I growing up in Boston, we had a really eclectic rock station that just played everything. And, so you'd hear reggae and acid rock and the Eagles and all that stuff all play together. Are we losing some of that musical identity here in the States, do you think?
Personally, I think that even every community has their own musical culture, right? And to say for the entire country is a little bit tough as well. I think that in this age, there has been quite the development of technology, obviously. And with our streaming services, there has almost been an algorithm created for our music, right? So, why does Pandora send you to that song? on that radio station kind of situation. Like you were saying, the rabbit holes of Spotify. And it's almost like we were saying before that there are other people kind of controlling where we go with our music and what we have access to. What does it say that there are some artists that won't put their music on Spotify because of their inability to create profit? And what does that say for how they're listened to, their audience, and how that grows, right? So there's a lot dictating that in the same way. But as far as our culture, our musical culture, I think that it's important to remember that everyone brings their own culture. And when you start to kind of mute or numb people's ability to express their own culture via these streaming services, it becomes a problem. So when teaching, I think world music, even that title becomes an issue as well, because it creates an otherness, right? When you're talking about music, there's, American music, and then there's Indian music and in India. And that's really not true, because there are a lot of Indian Americans and their culture is here as well. So in doing so, I would really encourage, especially teachers in the classroom, that when you are teaching about Indian music, Cuban music, I'm Cuban, to see if there are any students in your classroom that resonate with that and have them speak on it, rather than teaching your class about a music that you might not be completely familiar with. I know one of my students, she was so excited when we were talking about Ravi Shankar, who is, a really, really famous Indian musician. And it was really exciting because he was one of the first people to bring Indian music to mainstream by teaching John Lennon how to play. And so all of those things, all of those connections, and really not allowing your students to feel as though their musical connections cannot be heard is super important. And I think that in doing so, it will really fortify our culture.
Yeah. Hey, I Am Musical, The Adventures of Waffles. It's a great debut book for you. Have you caught the author bug? Are you looking to write a series?
Yeah, so Adventures of Waffles is going to be the series title, and Waffles is going to go on several different adventures. Listening to landscape musics, how do just the sounds of your environment create a song, create music, and what does that feel like? How do different people take in music, right? So people with hearing aids, people who may not be completely vocal, all of those things. How do they consume music? People who may not have access to the internet or things of that sort. How do they consume music? So I think that the Adventures of Waffles have a lot to go see still. And I hope that people will be excited to join us for the ride.
Yeah. You mentioned folks with hearing aids, how they experience music. I worked in a school. Before I met my beautiful wife, I worked in a school for kids with severe developmental disabilities. And lots of our kids were deaf. And my job was to integrate them or give them opportunities to integrate with, quote, unquote, typical kids. And so we brought a group of kids in from a neighboring public school and brought our kids in. And we brought the brass quintet from Berklee College of Music. And a company in Boston donated a bazillion balloons, big helium-filled balloons, so that all the kids could experience hearing the music through the vibrations in the balloons. And it was,
oh my gosh, it's amazing.
It was a really fun experience for the kids. It's such a wonderful memory that I have of helping to put that together.
Right. And there's so many amazing things we can do with music, right? It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Wow. I'm curious, are you creating any music yourself that we should check out?
So currently I just had a baby 3 weeks ago.
So you're a little bit busy.
Yeah. So I have a 1.5-year-old and a 3-week-old. So, absolutely I was creating music, but honestly, my passion really is to teach music, and to just, watch little kids just go crazy with the maracas and singing. They think that I'm the best singer they've ever heard.
Of course.
And I mean, I really can't get a better audience than that. So I think I'm going to keep doing that, but you can absolutely follow Adventures of Waffles on Instagram. And yes, so exciting.
Yep. And please remind everybody again where they can go online to, in addition to Instagram, check out your website.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can buy I Am Musical Adventures of Waffles by Barbara Brown on Amazon. You can buy it on barnesandnoble.com and target.com.
Our guest has been the author of I Am Musical Adventures of Waffles, Barbara Brown. Barbara, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. We are so grateful that you're part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. We'd love for you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading with Your Kids on Instagram, at Jedley Magic on Twitter. If you are on LinkedIn, please connect with Jed Doherty. We also have a Reading with Your Kids page on LinkedIn. We would love for you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Authors, click on the Authors Click Here button to find out how you can be a guest here on the show and find out how we can help you celebrate your book with the world. And also, parents, please be sure to visit readingwithyourkids.com to download our free online magazine. Hey, we want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we want to start by thanking our amazing guest. I also want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Chris Doherty, Ann O'Leary, Soji Franklin. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.